Peace, y'all. Peace to the fam. We got King El Bay in the building. He about to come back in a minute and drop some science on y'all pertaining to. Actually, we're just going into civil death and I remember the other day he's breaking down about he was saying how we like kill the straw man. You know what I mean? The straw man has to go through a civil death, meaning he just broke down how it shows how when one has left the temporal world for the spiritual world by joining the monastery. Um, and that's to say, basically, you picking up your ministry or your uh, administration of the word of God, and that's according to your own theology. Whatever it is, like you're a Hindu or Buddhist or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying, a God, 5%er, you know what I mean? Whatever your ideology of God is, that's your theology. That's your and then when you teach about that, that's your ministry. Not a minister like the wisdom bill degree, marrying the unalike and all of that. You know what I'm saying? God's like, now it's like, oh, that's the minister. Blah, blah, blah. We ain't talking about that. Talk about the definition of the word. You know what I'm saying? Not what Yaqub was doing on the island of Pelon. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I just want to throw that out there because brothers, we all on all the semantic wordplay and all of that. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, the garbage is breaking that down though about civil death and how basically the civil, like I said, the civil death is when one dies, or one gives up the temporal world for the spiritual world by joining the monastery. Monastery is ministry. You know what I'm saying? So, like, let's say, for example, in the Christian ideology, a person, coming out of the world and getting into the church and so-called getting saved and such and such and such and such. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, gotta get sent to the room, dude. Back in the building. So they would be considered getting into the ministry or the monastery and so forth. But yeah, God sent to the room to come in the building. Yes, I just sent another link. God should be in there in a minute. But yeah, so that's deep though, because giving up the temporal world, giving up the commercial world, you could say, because what's taking place is right now we're dealing in a commercial world via contracts, birth certificate, social security card, state ID, all these different things, your job application, all that, whatever vehicles or homes you may have registered. So what you want to do is you want to give up that simple world and come into the spiritual world where you're dealing with your monastery, your ministry. Peace, God. You go to God now. Chimed in. Peace.
Hey.
Yeah, peace, God. Yeah, I was just building on, if you want to go back on that civil death and break that down again, God, because I want to start a new one,
Okay. Hey, Nana, take this in the kitchen for me. Do me a favor. Riri, take this in the kitchen for me. You hungry? Give her some applesauce.
Did you say you good or you fat?
Okay. I'm going to send you the rest of it real quick so you can have it. So I'm going to go over the civil death with you. I'm going to send you the rest of that. Real quick. That goes with the rest of it. So let's go over the civil death, God, as we touch this, right? Let me go over here and let's go. Will it let me use the auto reader? I wonder if I can use. I don't know if I can use the auto reader. I don't know if I can use the auto reader. I should be able to use it, don't you think? I don't want to copy. Hold on, let me see if I can copy it.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, I was just breaking down about the civil. You said civil death, and one of the parts it said, when one leaves the temporal world to go into the spiritual world by joining the monastery. Monastery is ministry. You know what I mean? And that's when you get into your some would say apprenticeship, or more so your duty. You know what I'm saying? Teaching. Like if dealing with the spring wisdom lessons, 120 lessons. You know what I'm saying? As wisdom or God, and it prescribes that your duty is to teach uncivilized, teach some civilization, righteousness, and knowledge of self, everything in life, which is love, peace, and happiness. Science, everything in life, love, peace, and happiness. You know,
Let me see if I can pop
so in that sense, that would be your ministry. Like you pertaining to that duty, or like Noble Drew at least taught us to uplift fallen humanity. So while we out there, we teaching and we building with the people, you uplifted fallen humanity. That's a prescribed law of the person of the set ability. It's a prescribed law of Islam of the person of the set ability. You know what I'm saying? That the civilized is held responsible for the uncivilized. So like when I ended my live the other day, I said we uplifted fallen humanity and we civilizing all human families of the planet Earth. You know what I'm saying? And that's the duty. That's the ministry. That's their job. You know what I'm saying? That's the mission, quote unquote, the mission of the nation state. So you don't have your international organization or your uh, ministry or whatever the case may be. It has a mission. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Mission. What your mission is.
What is that? What is that? What is it called? Loud speak? Ain't it called loud speak? Let's see. Hold on, let me see if I can go. Let me see if I can
Yep.
read out loud. So
Yep.
Control Shift U. Okay. Control Shift U. So let me see if I can go back. What?
I'm getting tired of you on the computer.
Control. Control Shift U. They won't let me do it here.
Yeah, here you go. Speak up. Yeah, you ain't gonna listen. I'm just for my live. I'm looking for some information.
Control Shift U.
Well, actually, I need to smoke. Actually,
Read aloud selection.
you want to remember me to watch up on the TV in the room. Listen, I'll right back on. Yeah, so go ahead, guys. You about to go into civil death, you said?
Yeah. Civil death. I'm trying to see. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to see dictionary, civil death. Damn, it did something else. Reference. So
Share your screen.
I didn't share the screen.
No.
Would you fix her some of that? So let me pull this up. Let me go read aloud selection. Let me see if it. Oh shit. What the hell I just do? I don't know what I just did, but I guess I'm gonna have to go over it. It won't work. I done did something. I'm gonna have to undo it. Okay, so a civil death is what is that? Archaic at common law, the loss of rights, such as the right to vote, make contracts, inherit, and sue by a person who has been outlawed or convicted of a serious crime, or who is considered to have left the temporal world. Remember, I was always talking about the world versus the earth, for the spiritual by entering a monastery. In one large department of law in the fiction, civil death is elegantly maintained. A monk or nun cannot acquire or have any property rights. When a man becomes professed in religion, his heirs at once inherit from him any land that he has. And if he has made a will, it takes effect at once as though he was naturally dead. Civil death arises from outlawry. It seems doubtful whether there are any other circumstances to which the phrase is now applicable. Principles of law. In some states, the loss of rights, such as the right to vote and hold public office by a person serving a life sentence. Civil disability. See disability, under disability. Public employee. Why you gonna let her go in there and she's gonna make a mess? The state of a corporation that has formally dissolved or become bankrupt, leaving an estate to be administered for the benefit of shareholders and creditors. Legal death. You see that? That's the third sense.
They always do that. Like, look, if she in the shower, mama, like, if she in the shower, she don't act like she got a food.
You don't go in there with no boy like he don't go in there with no girl like me.
People say, every time I was reading, they take a shower, one of them got a food.
I was trying to.
Oh,
Why is it? What happened? I don't know how to undo this either.
And you say you can't play outside with the woman.
Who said I couldn't play outside?
I was there to talk.
I'm not saying it was good.
Y'all don't need to.
So they told me to come outside when me and Kitty first came.
No, I don't want y'all outside with these people. Oh, that's what happened. I put it in that. Okay, so, but I went over some of these doctrines, like the doctrine of the state, doctrine of the state, history, the rule that a person cannot own land, but merely own an estate in it, authorizing a person to hold it for some period of time. This doctrine answers the questions of the duration of estates. So I was listing a bunch of documents, right? So this is what happens. They are bankrupt. And under their jurisdiction, if you don't create an international organization and you reside in their jurisdiction, they're going to administer the state in accordance to their probate, uniform probate laws. So what a lot of people don't understand is when you create an estate, you create trust under this commercial element, and then you create contracts and other things that is property to other things. So for example, you might have like Coca-Cola. A lot of people don't understand. You won't find Coca-Cola on the state level. Why? Because they're an international organization, and their Coca-Cola empire and all the contracts that they have and the products that they produce is their estate. And all of the rights, their intellectual property rights and all of that go to Coca-Cola. Can't nobody use Coca-Cola, their name or their products. You feel what I'm saying? Can't nobody use their brand. This is the same thing that we're doing when we create an estate. But the problem is a lot of Moors don't understand that under the laws of succession, if we had our own organization, when you die, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter if you didn't do a will, because if you didn't have no more family, it would go to the community of that international organization. You feel what I'm saying? It only can be probated to the people in the organization. So you wouldn't have to worry about anything else. That's why when you get a civil death, as to here in the third sense, let me make that a little bigger. Make this bigger. The state of a corporation that formally dissolved or become bankrupt, leaving an estate to be administered for the benefit of shareholders, right, and creditors. So we would be the shareholders. And then the creditors would be anybody that is accredited in the organization for as any industries, the banking industries, the automobile industries, the plane industries, the technology, all of those industries will be creditors because they create an industry in which creates wealth. They create a gross national product. So let's look up gross national product real quick. Say, understanding gross national product, the GNP measures the total monetary value, the output produced by a country's residents. So what is the resistance of the country is these corporations. These corporations are residents and they create a gross national product.
Gross national product is the market value of all the products and services produced in 1 year by labor and property supplied by the citizens of a country. Unlike gross domestic product, which defines production based on the geographical location of production, GNP allocates production based on location of ownership. GNP does not distinguish between qualitative improvements in the state of the technical arts and quantitative increases in goods, and considers both to be forms of economic growth. When a country's capital or labor resources are employed outside its borders, or when a foreign firm is operating in its territory, GDP and GNP can produce different measures of total output. In 2009, for instance, the United States estimated its GDP at $14.119 trillion and its GNP at $14.265 trillion.
So there's gross domestic and gross. So they told you right here, right? When, hold on.
When a country's capital or labor resources are employed outside its borders, or when a foreign firm is operating in its territory, GDP and GNP can produce different measures of total output.
So these corporations are considered foreign firms. And what they're doing is they're helping the United States create economic value so they become a creditor in that matter. You see what I'm saying? Are you there, God?
Yes.
So what we got to understand is that's why I was talking about manufacturing so much, about what we're doing. You got to look at what the United States is doing. It's a service corps.
I hear you, God.
It's a service corps as it relates to, let's see, as it relates to this definition. And it talk about jurisdiction and commerce, right? Then it tell you commerce, and it's right here, means trade, traffic, commerce, transportation, transmission, or communication among the several states or between any state and any place outside thereof. So they tell you where the commerce jurisdiction lies. And this is the Department of Office of Labor and Management Standards of the U.S. Department of Labor. So this is what they consider commerce. Any transportation, anytime you commit any activity, right? When I first, this is like they said, means industry affecting commerce, means any activity. That's the first definition. Industries, and I told you about creating an industry. Industry affecting commerce. So all these large conglomerates, right? They come in and they create industries that they now become the creditor. The banking industry is a creditor. The automotive industry is a creditor. That's why they have to bail them out. Anytime their system look like it's about to collapse, they have to do a bailout. They can't allow them industries to close. So this is what I'm saying. They already gave us a blueprint. A lot of Moors don't understand this information. So they learning trust from the least, right, perspective instead of from the head perspective, right? They learning it from a least or lesser position than a more higher or proper position so that they can have leverage. Due to the fact that they're learning trust from an inferior position versus learning it from a more prominent position or superior position. So they're not coming under the laws of nations and doing it that way. They just feel like all we got to do is do this, but they doing commerce in a U.S. jurisdiction in which even in the treaty, they say where the laws are being broke, right? So we can even go through the treaties and break some of that down to show people that. Because a lot of people are under the impression that our claim is superior to theirs without understanding the laws of secession and breaking this stuff down.
So we got this here, bonds, insurance, and taxes. General guideline bond.
But see, they take everything. They take everything from the natural and bring it into the fiction.
To the commercial, right?
To the commercial. So anytime you trust somebody, what do you create? A bond. You see what I'm saying? When you start trusting people, y'all create bonds. The same thing a trust do. You create a bond.
A single bond in place of separate bonds.
Father. Father, I was about to read this out here on bonds, and I don't go to the whole thing, but just a little some, and then get back and then go into that what we talk about, that irrevocable line of credit. Irrevocable line of credit. We'll get into that in a minute. And I'm gonna just Give you definitions first.
Bonds to secure all. One, annual bond. A single bond in place of separate bonds to secure all of the supplier's obligations under contracts entered into during a specific fiscal year. 2. Bond. A written instrument executed for the benefit of the Postal Service, security for the supplier's obligation, and to assure payment of any bonded loss. A bond is executed by an offerer or supplier identified in the instrument as the principal, together with a second party identified as the surety. 3. Consent of surety. An acknowledgement by a surety that its bond continues to apply to the contract as modified. 4. Fidelity bond. A bond. Interim internal purchasing guidelines. 7. Fidelity bond. A bond to assure the faithful performance of an employee's duties to his or her employer and the employer's clients. The bond is used to cover losses such as employee thefts or embezzlements. 5. Patent infringement bond. A bond given as security for a supplier's obligation under a patent clause. 6. Payment bond. A bond to assure payment of all persons supplying labor and material under a contract. 7. Performance bond. A bond given as security for the supplier's obligations under a contract. 8. Irrevocable letter of credit, ILC. A written commitment by a federally insured financial institution to pay all or part of a stated amount of money on demand by the Postal Service until the expiration date of the letter. The letter of credit cannot be revoked or conditioned. 9.
So they said an irrevocable letter of credit is a written commitment by a federally insured financial institution to pay all or part of a stated amount of money on demand by the Postal Service until the expiration date of the letter. The letter of credit cannot be revoked or conditioned. So basically now, when you create that bond, when you create the bond from the birth certificate, you're gonna create a certificate of trust for the birth certificate, and then you deposit that with the treasury, and then after they have notice of it, then you're able to have drop your irrevocable letter of credit, and the bond or the security of the bond is coming from the certificate of trust with the birth certificate. Then you transfer that to the post office, and in the post office, as they said, is to it says pay all parts or demands on behalf of demanded by the Postal Service until the expiration date of the letter. The credit, the letter of credit can be revoked or conditioned. So now say like, okay, once you get that bond with the Treasury and so forth, certificate of trust, that's what's going to create the bond or the ability to draw equity out of the bond. Then when you transfer that to the treasurer will notify, I guess, the post office, or you'll be able to notify the post office of your certificate of trust in the bond that you have, and therefore they will create, I guess, a system of credits, or they can demand credits from a federally insured financial institution, hence Federal Reserve Bank, which means that now you'll have access to the primary account. You know what I'm saying? Not the minor account, which is a state account, but they're operating on the public side. But now you have access to the primary account, which is the Federal Reserve account. Okay? So that's how that works right there. And there's more details to it and everything. I didn't, but just to give you like a roundabout idea of it.
So you got to, I think, banker acceptance got to be with that.
Banker acceptance, right?
And then you also can use a memorandum of trust. That's your law, and that's going to be associated with your will and everything. So you would speak the law because that's what you want your trust to operate in. Your memorandum of law, which is your memorandum of trust. That's your law. So you will have the certificate of trust memorandum and banker's acceptance, send it to the Treasury. The Treasury would then utilize that. You would get the records back from there, go to the post office and set up your everything with your you would already have your memorandum, certificate, irrevocable, letter of credit, and your banker's acceptance, all done through the Treasury, and then you will go to the post office and set up your account where it'll be issued in credits.
And this right here says acceptable securities. It says bonds must be supported by acceptable corporation sureties, or by asset assets acceptable as security for the supplier's obligations. Then it says clause 7-2, additional bond securities must be included in all contracts for which a bond is required. So basically, clause 7-2 tells you the requirements for the bonds and whatnot. And then up here it's saying that the bond must be supported by acceptable corporate surety. So in other words, like they was talking about the stamp, the medallion stamp from the bank, or the banker's acceptance or whatever you're saying, acceptable corporate surety. That's the banker's acceptance. And by assets acceptable. So now what you're going to give them is the bond, the certificate of trust, letting them know that you have the bond on the birth certificate, and that's the bond surety. That's the additional bond security that must be included in all contracts for which a bond is required. So basically, that certificate of trust that you get with the Treasury and everything, that's the bond security, basically. You know what I mean? Corporate securities, any corporate security offered by a bond furnished the postal office must appear on the list contained in Treasury Department Circular 750. So check out Circular 750, so forth, so forth. The amount of the bond may not exceed the underwriting limit stated for the security in that list. So in other words, if the bond that you have states a certain amount, then that's what it is. You can't go down to the post office and be like, no, well, the bond's supposed to be for 100,000, but you know what I'm saying? Oh man, let me get like 200,000. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody gonna know you. Nah, you can't do all that. You gotta be exactly what it say it is. You know what I'm saying? So individual securities. The postal service does not accept individual securities. See what I'm saying? That's what I was saying. So if you just like an individual and you try to create a security, like my dude was saying, yo, I created a bond and I got the security and and all that. And I'm like, yo, they're not going to respect that individual security. You heard that? Technically he wasn't dealing with the postal office anyway, because like I said, he didn't up on this information. I try to put brothers on, but they don't want to listen. So they don't know that they go into the wrong places. They're trying to get this process done, but you go into the wrong place. To tell you right here, the Postal Service does not accept individual securities, and neither does anywhere else. And if you're gonna go to the postal office, you got to come to them correct with the additional security bond, and it must include all contracts for which the bond is required. So, okay. Deposit of assets, individual of security bonds. Deposit of asset. Okay, deposit of assets in lieu of means instead of security bonds. So in lieu of any bond or other payment, in lieu of any bond, other payment other than a payment bond for a construction contract, the supplier may deposit certain kinds of assets with the postal office instead of furnishing a bond. So what they try to say, you can give the post office collaterals, and they'll create a bond or whatever, or they'll give you some type of credits or something. Like so the post office is a bank basically. You know what I'm saying? Wow. The only assets acceptable in place of security bonds are described below. So, a United States bond or note with maturity dates less than 5 years from the date of contract, together with an agreement authorizing collection of sale in the event of default. The par value of the bond or notes must be at least equal to the to the penal to the penal amount of the bond. So yeah, like I was saying, it got to be, everything got to be correct and everything. A check, a certified check, cashier's check, draft bank, postal, money order, or currency. The deposit must be at least equal to the penal amount of the surety bond, and the payable solely to the order of the United States Postal Service. So what they're trying to say is basically, if you give them a money order, they'll create a bond for you in the name of the Postal Service. You heard that, guy? King.
I'm listening.
Yeah. Did you catch that there? Did you
Yeah, when it's talking about the bonds, blow it up a little bit because I can't read it. It's hard for me to read it.
All right, one second. Yeah, actually, that's as big as it's gonna go. Actually,
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was just trying to keep some of this background noise out.
yeah, feel you. All right. But yeah, well, basically, I was trying to say, I mean, I don't know. Well, you just put it on mute now, but maybe you could like lower your volume or something, maybe.
For as like, I mean, this, I'll add my comments in a little bit. I'm just gonna try to mute because I got background noise going on.
Yeah, God, I can't hear you, God. King, you got your thing on mute.
I was letting you go because I just had
Oh,
out background noise.
my bad. I thought you was going in because I was gonna say I couldn't hear nothing you were saying. Um, but yeah, I was just breaking down about like the bonds or whatever, and how it says like saying like how it says the deposit must be at least all right. Contracting is basically trying to say like the post office is like a bank. You know what I'm saying? And like you deposit your information with them or whatever, and they're supposed to give you like some kind of bond or credits or something like that, like after your deposit or whatever. Like they transfer it into credits or somehow.
Right. So they also state in this, right, because I'm pulling it up on my end so I can read it. It says deposit of assets also. So, hey, dude, hey, Kenny. So bonds must be supported by acceptable corporate sureties or by assets acceptable as security for the supplier's obligation.
Yeah.
So
So
what
I'm
would
saying,
it be?
so I'm saying, can you give them collaterals or something? You know what I mean? Like you can give
So
them assets as collateral.
so remember, we're a shareholder, right? So what we're going to do is get from the treasury, right? Or they create, they're going to give us our treasury bonds, which is our credits. Those are the assets that's going to be deposited. So when you contact the U.S. Treasury, they're going to give you your credits, and I believe they're going to be U.S. Treasury bonds. And then you're going to take those assets and deposit those credits into the post office, and then there into the UPU, and then they're going to be able to verify those credits.
It says it goes on to say the contracting officer must deposit currency, checks, drafts with the information service center with instructions to hold the funds for the benefit of the supplier. The perpetual inventory of all the deposited items must be kept in the senior contracting office at the purchasing office. So I guess that'll be the post office dude, the head post marshal, whatever. He's supposed to hold the records or something.
Yeah.
Because
So
when the superior, yeah, that
now go ahead, God. I was just listening.
when the when the superior pledges assets instead of providing security bonds, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if that's some kind of collateral, the supplier must complete the bond the bond form as principal, and the bond form must prescribe the assets pledged. Look like a deed of trust kind of
Right,
transferring these assets, and then they're gonna give you, I guess, credits or whatever. Let's see how that turns out.
right,
For, for the for the purposes of furnishing involving the furnishing of bonds other than payments payment bonds for construction contracts, including provisions 7-4 deposited part itself deposit of assets requirement in a uh, solicitation include clauses 7-3 deposit of assets instead of security bonds in every contract requiring a bond for which assets may be deposited in lieu of the bond. So now they get into the irrevocable letter of credit. Now this is a letter of credit that you can draw in pursuant to the security fund with the treasury. So it says any person requiring to furnish a bond has the option to furnish a bond security by an ILC, an irrevocable letter of credit, in an amount equal to the penal sum required to be secured. A separate ILC, a separate irrevocable letter of credit, is required for each bond. So you can do more than one bond. You can create one bond. The irrevocable letter of credit must. Yeah, I'm gonna let this read off. You know what I'm saying?
The ILC must be irrevocable, unconditional, expire only as provided in paragraph 6 below, and be issued by an acceptable federally insured financial institution. ILCs over $5 million must be confirmed by another acceptable financial institution that had letter of credit business of at least $25 million in the past year. 3. To draw on the ILC, the contracting officer will use a site draft and present it with the ILC to the issuing financial institution or the confirming financial institution, if any. 4. If the supplier does not furnish an acceptable ILC or other acceptable substitute,
At least 30 days before an ILC's scheduled expiration, the contracting officer shall immediately draw on the ILC. 5. If, after the period of performance of a contract where ILCs are used to support payment bonds, there are outstanding claims against the payment bond, the contracting officer will draw on the ILC prior to the expiration date of the ILC to cover these claims. 6. Expiration dates will be established as follows. A. For construction contracts subject to the provisions of the Miller Act, the later of.
The Miller Act. We need to look up the Miller Act. One second. We just plug that in real fast and come back to that. All right, so
Miller Act, the later of. 1. 1 year following the expected date of final payment. 2. For performance bonds only, until completion of any warranty period, or 3. For payment bonds only, until resolution of all claims filed against the performance bond during the 1 year period following final payment. B. For other contracts not subject to the Miller Act, the later of. 1. 90 days following final payment, or 2. Until completion of any warranty period for performance bonds only. 7. The ILC must be issued or confirmed by a federally insured financial institution rated investment grade or better. A. The supplier shall provide the contracting officer a credit rating that indicates the financial institution has the required ratings as of the date of issuance of the ILC. B. If the contracting officer learns that a financial institution's ratings has dropped below the required level, the contracting officer will give the supplier 30 days to substitute an acceptable ILC, or will draw on the ILC using a site draft. 8. When the contract performance period is extended, the contracting officer will require the supplier to provide an ILC with an appropriately extended maturity that meets the requirements of 7.1.9.e.6 above. The 7th of January, 2010 Contract Administration. 7.1.10. Information and notice to sureties. 1. Correspondence. A copy of all correspondence relating to contract modification, termination, renewal, or non-performance must be provided to each surety, with proof of delivery requested. Additional information on contract performance and payment must be provided to sureties upon request. 2. Furnishing information to subcontractors and suppliers.
So in other words, like, there's a way to do this, and you have to have all your paperwork, your paper trail, basically. You have all your evidence to prove, everything that you're doing and everything, basically.
Suppliers. When a payment bond has been provided, the contracting officer may furnish the name and address of the surety or sureties to persons who have furnished, or have been requested to furnish, labor or materials for use in performing the contract. The contracting officer may furnish additional general information on such matters as the progress of the work, the payments made, and the estimated percentage of completion. 3. Failure to perform. The contracting officer must send each surety a copy of any notice of impending termination, demand for adequate assurances, assessment of liquidated or other damages, or other formal notice of failure to perform under the contract, with a notice that the surety may be liable for damages suffered by the Postal Service. 4. Claims against sureties. If a supplier's failure to perform necessitates a claim against a surety, the contracting officer must give the surety written notice of the amount of and reasons for the claim. If the surety refuses to pay or does not respond, the contracting officer must obtain procedural assistance from assigned counsel. The contracting officer will only authorize payment from an ILC or any other cash equivalent security upon a judicial determination of the rights of the parties. A signed notarized statement by the supplier that the payment is due and owed, or signed agreement between parties as to the amount due and owed.
Yeah, so in other words, you know, this is like they're giving you this as like a performance bond. So if you're saying you need this bond for, you want to build a school, an institution or something, you know, whatever the intent of the bond is, then if you don't perform this or if you don't do it, then you could go and say, okay, I need like an extension of time. But if you don't notify them of this, then they're going to say, okay, well, according to whatever law, whatever statute, code, you only got like 30 more days, and if you don't respond by then I guess we just gonna have to collapse this trust or collapse this bond because you're not, you know, you're not performing, you're not holding the end of the performance. So it's a performance bond. You have to perform. So this is the same thing lawyers do. They issue performance bond. Like say you get a legal aid, they fill out a performance bond stating that, oh, my client is gonna come to court every court appearance. They're gonna come all the way up to trial. I'm gonna make sure that I keep contact with them and make sure that I notify them that they have to get ready for court and make sure that they're here every time they show up and perform because they have a performance bond. So now that's why the attorney is the attorney. He turns you over to the judge or to the court. So they always making sure, oh, you know, you got court today. You know, you want to make sure you be there. They send you a little email or something, let you know. You know what I'm saying? So they keep you on deck so that they can fulfill that performance bond. Now, after that 90 days or when after that case is over, the bonds mature. That's how they get their credits to now go and do whatever they do with their credits or whatever. That's how they eat. That's how they live. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying? And this is all off of your labor because they want you to perform. Like you were saying, they taxing you for the activities and whatnot. This is what it is, performance bonds. You know what I mean? So, yeah, God, you want to add on to that or you want me to continue on? You heard God?
Yeah, continue, God.
All right.
Owed 7.1.10.b surety takeover agreements. 1. Because of the surety's liability for damages resulting from a supplier's default, the surety has certain rights and interests in the completion of the contract work and the application of any undisbursed funds.
Right. So in other words, they want to make sure you performing your what you said you were going to do. Make sure you building that school and making sure you ain't spending the money on other things. You know what I'm saying? Or you know, using the credits for other things. So they say, you know, it says the surety has certain rights and interests in the completion of the contract work and the application of any undistributed funds. You know what I mean?
Funds. Before terminating a contract for default, the contracting officer must consider any proposal by the surety for completion of the work.
Right. So like I was saying, if you don't come to them and be like, oh, hold on, my bad, man, I need like 30 more days or 60 more days to get this together, da da da. If you don't notify them, then they're gonna be like, yo, he's abandoning the bond. So we gotta collapse it. Or either they're just gonna transfer whatever credits back into the treasury or back into the postal office or whatever. You know what I mean?
Work. The surety should be permitted to complete the work unless the contracting officer has reason to believe that the persons or firms proposed by the surety to complete the work are not competent or qualified.
Yeah, in other words, they realize, nigga, you bullshitting and you ain't doing what you said you were supposed to do, so we gotta shut this shit down. You know what I'm saying? Like you ain't doing your obligations to the performance bond.
Qualified. 2. Because of the possibility of conflicting demands for the defaulting supplier's unpaid earnings, including retained percentages and unpaid progress payments, the surety may condition its offer of completion upon the execution of a takeover agreement establishing the surety's right to payment from the unpaid earnings.
Right. See, so in other words, like they want that money, you know what I'm saying? Like, so now they can have a takeover agreement. Like, okay, he didn't do what he was supposed to do with the bond. We're gonna take this back and transfer it back into the treasury or back into the postal office or whatever case may be.
Earnings. If so, and with the concurrence of the Vice President, Supply Management, the contracting officer may enter into such an agreement with the surety in writing after the effective date of contract termination. The contracting officer should consider including the defaulting supplier as a party to the agreement in order to preclude any disagreement on the supplier's residual rights.
Right. So in other words, they're basically gonna notify you that yo, we about to close this bond, man, because you ain't been performing. So now if you want to come in and be like, oh my bad, I had some things going on and I couldn't, or whatever your excuses or whatever your reason for, then you be like, if you don't state it, then they're gonna proceed to do what they do. They just further emphasizing that basically.
Rights. 3. The agreement must provide that the surety will complete the work according to all contract terms and conditions, and that the Postal Service will pay the surety the balance of the contract price unpaid at termination, but not more than the surety's costs and expenses, subject to the following conditions. A. Any unpaid earnings of the defaulting supplier, including retained percentages and progress payments for work accomplished before termination, are subject to debts owed the Postal Service by the supplier.
Right. So in other words, like saying, like, let's say you said you needed 500,000 to build this school, and you only use 300,000. The remaining 200,000 will be sent back into their accounts or whatever.
Except to the extent that the unpaid earnings are required to pay the completing surety the actual costs and expenses it incurs in completing the work, exclusive of the surety's payments and obligations under the payment bond given in connection with the contract.
Word. So they said that basically they're gonna refund the money back to you, even if like it was from the bond, but they're gonna refund the money back to you even if you didn't complete the work. Word. Wow. Let me find out. That's crazy.
Contract. B. The agreement may not waive or release the Postal Service's right to liquidated damages for any delay in completion of the work that is not excusable under the contract.
Wow. So in other words, so it said the agreement may not waive or release the the Postal Service's right to liquidate damages for any delay in completion of the work, and it's not that is not excusable under the contract. So in other words, like if you did this, or if you were any delay, and there's a clause in the contract to say like, okay, well, because of this, it's a reason why you could justify the delay, then the Postal Service has no right to liquidate for damages. You know what I'm saying? For delay, they basically just have to refund you the funds. You know what I'm saying? Like, ain't that something? So in other words, the postal office don't got no power over the bond. They just acting as a trustee to transfer the credits. That's all they doing. You know what I'm saying? And they have no right to try to say, well, we're gonna keep this money, or we're gonna, like, you know what I'm saying? No, can't do that. Wow.
Contract. C. If the contract proceeds have been assigned to a financing institution, the surety may not be paid from unpaid earnings unless the assignee consents to the payment in writing. D. The surety may be reimbursed for discharging its liabilities under the payment bond of the defaulting supplier only when.
Wow. And they're about to give you a couple of reasons why you can do that. But it said the surety may reimburse for discharging its liabilities under the payment bond for the defaulting supplier only when. So these are some excuses of when, you can be reimbursed. Pardon. Oh man, pardon, man. Thing froze up, man. The surety must be required for the surety may be Come on, damn, man. Shit's freezing up now, man. What the heck?
I'm waiting
Yeah,
on you.
yeah, this thing is acting up, man. Let me exit out. It's like freezing up on me or something, man. All right, we're still in the building. All right, let me share. I gotta share it again real fast. Yeah, Keith was like, man, you gotta have a field day with this, man. I said, I sure am, man. Yeah, this is where the fun's at. And I'm still fucking with the International Monetary Fund shit too, you know what I'm saying? I'm still, you know what I mean? Looking into that too. Hmm. All right, so where was we at? Equity bonds and security. All right. All right, here we go.
The surety may be reimbursed for discharging its liabilities under the payment bond of the defaulting supplier only when 1. There is mutual agreement among the Postal Service, the defaulting supplier, and the surety. 2. The Postal Service Board of Contract Appeals makes a final determination of the amount due, or 3. A court of competent jurisdiction orders payment. 7.1.10.c Contract completion. 1. Upon supplier completion of all contract obligations, the contracting officer must issue a certificate of completion to any surety. The certificate's terms may not release the surety from any obligation under a payment bond. 2. When the supplier has deposited assets instead of providing a surety on a payment bond, the contracting officer must refund the assets, with accrued interest, within 90 days after final completion of contract performance, and let.
Wow. So in other words, so if you put up your own assets, they have to return it back to you, the funds. But also too, even if it's through the security bond is in your name. It's in the name of the birth certificate. So you're as the it says you must apply as the principal. So you're the principal for that bond. So it has to come back to the principal too. So it all has to come back to you anyway, whether on the public or the private.
Unless notice of a claim is received during the 90-day period. If a claim is received, the assets may be released only with the agreement of the claimant, or by order of a court of competent jurisdiction. 3. Assets deposited to secure any other bond may be refunded, with accrued interest, upon final completion and receipt of the supplier's release. See 6.4.3.c. 4. Upon request, the contracting officer will furnish a certificate of substantial completion to sureties of a construction supplier if the project is substantially complete, usable for the purpose intended. If the contracting officer is uncertain whether the project is substantially complete, the advice of assigned counsel must be obtained. Legal.
Right. So basically, you could draw up these irrevocable lines of credit, man. You know what I'm saying? This is where it's at, man. Once you get your treasury bond, or rather I say once you get the certificate of uh of trust, that is going to be the surety, or that's going to be the assurance to be able to go to the post office and have them create this bond or create these credits. You know what I'm saying? Whatever the irrevocable line of credit, irrevocable letter of credit draws up. So yeah, man, That's what's up, man. So the process is, I guess, getting doing a birth, the BC first. You know what I'm saying? Getting the birth certificate done up, and then you proceed with this step with the post office. So first dealing with the treasury, then the post office, and then you perform as instructed in the contract. But yeah, God, you want to come in on that, God? I'm pretty much done on that.
No, I'm just letting you soak it in because I'm just soaking in everything that you got going on because I be having all that interruption in the background.
Yeah, I feel you. So yeah, I was gonna say if you wanted to add on to any of this here, you know what I mean?
So what we're doing is you collapsing the old trust and establishing a new trust. You take the old business and give them the old business and the new business and the new business. All things become under new under Christ. So that's what the Bible, they follow that. So what we're doing is we're starting a new trust relationship. And then we're going to put everything in perspective for us, our rights and everything associated with that. So when we get these assets, they're going to accept them and transfer them in credits. We ain't going to have to go to the bank account. You're not going to do anything with the bank.
Well, it's that one part about the financing, accepting, whatever. So it says something about like the banker's acceptance or whatever. You know what I mean? As to where actually, I guess after you get the credits from the post office, then maybe you go to the bank or the federally insured, what they say up here, and they're supposed to accept it and whatnot. Okay, let's go. Sureties, acceptable sureties. It says bonds must be supported by acceptable corporate securities or by assets acceptable as security for the supplier's obligations. Clause 7-2, additional bond securities must be included in all contracts for which a bond is required. Corporate securities, all corporate security offered for the furnish the postal office and appear part there. Corporate securities, any corporate security offered for a bond uh, furnish the postal service must appear on the list contained in Treasury Department Circular 570. The amount of the bond may not exceed the underwriting or the private assets of the postal office may not. It says the postal service does not accept individual. All right, so hold on. Where's the part where he said about the Okay, here we go. Line 3. To draw on the irrevocable letter of credit, the contracting officer will use a site draft as present and present it with the irrevocable letter of credit to the issuing financial institution. Okay, so it says the contracting officer. The contracting officer, that's the post office. So the post office is going to present the irrevocable letter of credit to the bank, to the financial institute. So the post office, like I said, so you go from the treasurer, you get the certificate of bond from the treasurer, you go to the post office. The post office is going to be like the medium. So the treasurer is kind of acting like a public executive, but you're actually executive because you're the principal. And you're drawing up the certificate of trust. So you're actually the executor or the principal. and then you go to the post office as a trustee. They're gonna manage that letter of credit for you. They're gonna go and they're gonna promote it to the bank, and they're gonna say, "Yo, this shit is official. He got a bond from the treasury. Yo, this shit is official. This shit got full faith and credit. This shit is all good. Like, yo, you can back this. You know what I'm saying?" And then the bank is gonna be like, "Okay, they're gonna see it. They're gonna see it's official, everything good, and it's being promoted by the administrative clerk of the post office or whoever that person is." Then it says the superior, and it says, so they're going to present with the the ILC to the issuing financial institution or the confirming financial institution, if any. So in other words, that would be, the federally, as we say, the federally insured financial institution. That's the Federal Reserve Bank, basically, and they the ones holding your primary account. The all caps name. The account they got in all caps name, the Federal Reserve holding that shit hostage, basically. But when you go through these proper channels, then you can get access to it. So this right here is breaking down to you how you get access to those funds. You know what I'm saying? So it says if the superior does not furnish the acceptable irrevocable letter of credit or other acceptable substitute at least 30 days before the irrevocable letter of credit scheduled for expiration, the contracting officer shall immediately draw on the ILC. I keep about to say LLC. Uh, so in other words, saying like if time goes by, then they have to basically refund it. You know what I'm saying? After the period of performance of the other contract, where the ILC, the irrevocable letter of credit, are used to support payment bonds. There are outstanding claims against the payment bond. The contracting officer will draw on the irrevocable letter of credit prior to the expiration date on the cover of the claims. So when they say draw on, do they mean like withdraw or take back, or they're gonna do some like how you say line item veto on the thing and say no, it's not this. They have 30 days left or something. They're gonna basically draw on the document. I don't know. You know what I mean? Is that what they say?
In regards to that, what's going to happen is that once they accept all these documents, then the UPU is going to then take and deposit everything as it relates to these credits. And any letter of credit that is, you got to remember when we was talking about freedom of transit as it relates to commerce. Any activity in the commercial side is commerce. Communication is also a form of commerce. So those bonds can now be deposited in the UPU. That's the fiat that we're creating. We're creating fiat.
So they said expiration dates will be established as follows for the construction contract subject to the provisions of the Miller Act. So so let's go back. Let's go over here to the Miller Act. We're gonna look at that for a second. So I guess that's their protocols or whatever. I'm also go back and look up the codes where they say see this section, da da da, whatever. All right, so the Miller Act, 40 USC section 3131 to 3134 is the law requiring contract security bonds on federal construction projects. See, federal construction projects. That's what I was saying. If you want to build like a school, if you want to build some kind of something, you know what I mean? They got funds for that. You know what I mean? And that's under the Miller Act. The Miller Act requires that every contractor bidding on a federal project has to post a performance bond and a payment bond covering all labor and materials. See? Told you, man. That's what it is, man. And actually, thought this is my first time going through this. I went through it before, but this is my first time actually going through that thing, and I get it. I get it. You know what I'm saying? This stuff is not hard, man. And that's why I'm saying, man. People be searching for years and years and years and years. Like I was on, like I said, I was going through it. That's why I say, man, I think you and Keith so much, man, because like y'all opened my eyes to so much, man. And you know, what I'm saying? That's like ending the search, man. Because we search and we search and we search and we search for these things. And when we finally come into the information, it's like a blessing because now we can do what it is that we've been trying to do all this time. You know what I'm saying? And not just with this treasury bond thing, but many other things. You know what I'm saying? But so let's go a little more into this here. Miller Act, revocable costs and general requirements. But matter of fact, part of stuff. Let me read that again though. That was deep though. Oh yeah, we also got to check out U.S. this right here. 40 USC section 3131 to 3134. And after that, we're gonna come back down and go into the Miller Act thing right here, costs and revocable costs and general requirements. See, and you know why I'm doing this too. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not saying people don't know how to research, but we showing people how to research. We're showing people how to look things up, how to be like, okay, boom, okay, you see what that said? Okay, let's type that in. Boom, paste, copy, paste, throw that up in there, search. You know what I'm saying? Oh, let's see what pops up. Oh shit, 40 US code 3134. Oh man, let's click on that, see what that says. Oh snap, look what popped up. You know what I'm saying? Now let's get the knowledge. It's that simple. It's that simple. A click of a button. That's why I tell people you got the mind of God and you got the internet at the tip of your fingers, the World Wide Web. So there's no reason why you shouldn't know anything you want or need to know. Unless it's something spiritual that can only be obtained through the spiritual eye, the pineal gland. Other than that, anything that's, you want to write down.
40 U.S. Code 3131 bonds of contractors of public buildings or works. U.S. Code. Notes.
Oh, part of stuff. And this is dealing with bonds of contractors of public building works. See, so like I said, if you want to build something in the public, they got funds for you to do that. You know what I'm saying? And, you can get that done. This is it. So if you have like an international organization, or if you have a ministry, or if you have a something like that set up, you could apply for things like this.
Notes. Previous next. A. Definition. In this subchapter, the term contractor means a person awarded a contract described in subsection B.
For itself, it says contractor means a person awarded a contract described in section B. And they're about to go into that. And before they even go into that, I ain't even look at that. I can just tell, I can tell you already, like I said, the performance bond, that right there is the contract, because you with that treasury bond that you took to the post office, you're basically telling them like, yo, I'm creating a performance bond. I'm gonna build this school, I'm gonna build this institution, or whatever the case may be, and you know what I mean, I got the irrevocable letter of credit, and I have the certificate of trust that is the validity of that backs the which is the surety for the credit that I'm applying for. So you give that to the post office. The post office is going to bring that to the bank or the financially secured institution, and they're gonna draw up those funds. And it says type of bonds required.
B. Type of bonds required. Before any contract of more than $100,000 is awarded for the construction, alteration, or repair of any public building or public work of the federal government, person must furnish to the government the following bonds, which become binding when the contract is awarded.
Number one.
1. Performance bond. Dot.
Number one, performance bond. You got to have that performance bond. And that's why I say when you take that certificate of trust to the post office, they're basically, that's creating a performance bond. And you're telling them, listen, this is what I'm going to do. This is the intent, blah, 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 blah. I want to do this. I want to build a school. I want to do this. Da, 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 da. I need 100,000. You know what I'm saying? They bring that to the bank. They say, yo, he has a treasury bond. Everything's official. Da, 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 da. And boom, boom, boom. And bam, you in the door. So the performance bond, that's what you need, number one.
A performance bond with a surety satisfactory to the officer awarding the contract, and in an amount the officer considers adequate for the protection of the government. 2. Payment bond. Dot. A payment bond with a surety satisfactory to the officer for the protection of all persons supplying labor and material in carrying out the work provided for in the contract for the use of each person.
So in other words, as you build in a school, you can have your own private team of workers. You know what I'm saying? Like you can hire your own, like, okay, my uncle got a construction building, construction business. I want him to be the one to be on this payment bond. So after they finish the work through this, when the performance is done, they're going to get paid from the payment bond. So you list all of them, you list your uncle's company, him, whoever, all the workers, da 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 da, and then at the end they get paid through the payment bond.
The amount of the payment bond shall equal the total amount payable by the terms of the contract unless the officer awarding the contract determines, in a writing supported by specific findings, that a payment bond in that amount is impractical, in which case the contracting officer shall set the amount of the payment bond. The amount of the payment bond shall not be less than the amount of the performance bond.
Right, so in other words, if you're saying you're able to perform such and such, they're going to give you a payment bond in the amount of the performance bond. So the payment is going to equal your labor. You know what I'm saying? So it ain't no slavery, ain't nobody getting jerked. Everything is all equal consideration as we've been building on. You know what I mean? So as long as the job get, how they say a man is worth his the payment of his labor. You know what I mean? Or however that goes. Basically, that's what that's saying.
Bond. C. Coverage for taxes in performance bond. Dot. 1. In general. Dot. Every performance bond required under this section specifically shall provide coverage for taxes the government imposes, which are collected, deducted, or withheld from wages the contractor pays in carrying out the contract with respect to which the bond is furnished. 2. Notice. Dot. The government shall give the surety on the bond written notice, with respect to any unpaid taxes attributable to any period, within 90 days after the date when the contractor files a return for the period, except that notice must be given no later than 180 days from the date when a return for the period was required to be filed under the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, 26 U.S.C. 1 et seq.
Right, so that IRS code is or in this U.S. code is basically states the requirements for expiration dates and all of that. You know what I mean? So then now they're going to go into civil action.
SEQ. 3. Civil action. Dot. The government may not bring a civil action on the bond for the taxes.
Ooh, so now they're saying the government ain't got nothing to do with this. They can't come and try to tax your bond. That bond is your bond. Your word is your bond. That you know what I'm saying? Like that bond is what it is. You know what I'm saying? They can't try to come and say, oh, wait a minute, we didn't get none of this. Hey, we want a cut of this. No. You cannot tax it because it's secured through the bond. And if you try to breach into that security, that's why they say it's secured. It's a security. You cannot try to breach into that security. You know what I'm saying? So they can't try to tax your bond, basically. So get out of here. Womp womp.
Taxes. Unless notice is given as provided in this subsection, and b. more than 1 year after the day on which notice is given. D. Waiver of bonds for contracts performed in foreign countries. Dot. A contracting officer may waive the requirement of a
part of stuff. They said unless notice is given as provided in this subsection. So I guess they're going to tell you how, when they can tax you, how they can tax you more than 1 year after the day on which notice is given. So like a year after they say they're going to tax you, they could tax you. So like, but tax you for what though? You know what I'm saying? That's what I say. If everything is all equal consideration, then there's no room for a tax. You know what I'm saying? Unless there's a misappropriation of funds, and there's no misappropriation of funds, so there's no need for a tax. Everything's equal consideration. The labor equals the performance equals the payment. You know what I mean? The performance bond equals the payment bond. So everything's equal consideration. You know what I mean? So there should be no need for a tax. That's just them trying to be greedy. You know what I'm saying? Like, get out of here, man.
A performance bond and payment bond for work under contract. A contracting of more than 1 year after the day on which notice is given. D. Waiver of bonds for contracts performed in foreign countries. A contracting officer may waive the requirement of a performance bond and payment bond for work under a contract that is to be performed in a foreign country if the officer finds that it is impracticable for the contractor to furnish the bonds.
Now peep that. It says a contracting officer may waive the requirements of a performance bond and payment bond for work under a contract that is to be performed in a foreign country if the officer finds that it is incapable for the contractor to furnish the bond. So in other words, you know how like foreign people come over here and they set up their stores and all of that? All they got to do is say, oh, if these people been stealing out of my store and they stole so much stuff that I wasn't able to complete the bond, then guess what? It says a contracting officer may waive the requirement of performance bond. So in other words, they ain't even got to pay that shit back. You know what I'm saying? So that's why all these foreign people be coming over here. They set up shop. They got a line of credit. You know what I'm saying? They set up shop and they can just do business and they ain't even got to pay shit back. And that's also why they got them old ass products sitting on a shelf, because nobody buying them shits, and them shits are just sitting there. And they can't get no refund for the actual spoiled product. So the shit is just sitting there. And guess what? Since they didn't physically send the product back, all that money from them old ass products in the store is going in their pocket. It don't even go back to the performance bond or back to whoever. It's just sitting there. They supposed to dispose of it, but no, they still sell you some old ass products and they keep that money right in their pockets. So not only are they coming over here on a line of credit and just able to flourish in business, they also get waived from the requirement of the performance bond, and they get to keep the product that they didn't sell. And even if it's old or expired, they still sell it to us because we poor in the ghetto and we ain't got nowhere else to go to shop, and we ain't got our own stores because we don't understand this right here. But we don't got our own stores to shop from, so we got to shop from these foreigners who don't care about us because they don't respect us. They're not our people and all of that stuff. So they'll sell you some old ass stuff. They claim they Muslim, but they'll sell you some pork and they'll sell you cigarettes and they'll sell you alcohol and sell you all the haram stuff that they say they don't do in their religion, but they're going to sell it to you. See what I'm saying? But anyway, but yeah, that right there, wow, man, I just peeped that right there. Waiver of bond for contract performed in a foreign country. So like I said, these people could come over here and this will be to them, coming from where they coming from, over here would be considered a foreign country to them. And when they come over here with their irrevocable line of credit, and people, it says irrevocable letter of credit. It's irrevocable, meaning it can never be taken back. The credit is gonna stand for forever, basically. So they just got credit to come over here and do business. You know what I'm saying? And then, like I said, how they make money for themselves is by, like I say, not sending back the old products, selling us these old ass products with dust on it, sitting on their shelf, and we be buying that shit because ain't nowhere else to go. And then they make money for themselves, and then they go back to their country and live like kings and queens because they got this American dollar that they could go back and U.S. dollar that they could go back and transfer in their country and live rich. You know what I'm saying? So all that when you go in the store and they, oh, my friend, oh, hey, how you doing, my friend? Nigga, they ain't your friend. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not mad at them for being able to, do business or whatever, blah, 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 blah. But they got a lot of foul practices going on. You know what I'm saying? And, that's why we need to get hip to this science, and we could do stuff for ourselves, so we ain't got to be relying on other people to buy from them and eat out of their hands, basically. You know what I'm saying? They got international bills of exchange. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But yo, you there, El God? He was back in the midst of the universe. He's laid back in the cosmos. I ain't see you, God. But so you want me to continue, or you want to add on to that?
Peace. My fault, God. I got it on mute so that my background noise don't disturb what you professing.
All right. All right. Yeah. All right. So so let me just continue to see it.
Bonds. E. Authority to require additional bonds. This
See that
section
part
does-
itself. Authority to require additional bonds. See what I'm saying? So let's say that first bond expires, or they don't perform properly, and that first bond gets collapsed or whatever. Guess what they can do? Authority to require another bond.
does not limit the authority of a contracting officer to require a performance bond or other security in addition to those, or in cases other than the cases specified in subsection B. Public L. 107 to 217, August 21st, 2002, 160.
Yeah, so basically that was the breakdown on what they were saying about the U.S. Code. U.S. Code 40 U.S. Code 3131, bonds of contracting public works or public buildings or works. And then they also said 3131 through 3134. So, you know what I'm saying, there's more stuff too. So if you want to go into that, we could go into that. Or if you want to, actually, you know what, God, this segment, I think we didn't hit like the hour mark. And, like I said, you don't want these things to go too long, because then it'd be hard for you to upload them when they be too long on Facebook. So I'm gonna end this one out, and then we're gonna chime back in and come on another one.
All right.
All right. So peace, God.
Peace.
But yeah, man, like I was saying, man, as you can see, man, that's how it goes down, man. At the Universal Temple, you know what I'm saying? We in the Universal Temple, you know what I mean? And this is how it goes down, man. You know what I'm saying? This is how the knowledge gets dropped. This is how the information gets disseminated for the people. Because it ain't all about me. You know what I'm saying? Of course. Like, listen, don't think like, oh, well, you got all this knowledge. Why don't you just focus on yourself? And why don't you just do it for yourself? Because I'm not selfish. You know what I'm saying? I mean, tired of people always telling me that shit. Oh, well, why don't you do it for yourself? And you know what? And to a degree, they are right. You know what I'm saying? And that's not me being selfish by me focusing on self, but it's saying that in the mean, like I mean, it's 24 hours in the day. I mean, I'm not doing this. I'm not on a computer studying 24 hours a day like everybody. You know what I mean? So I got time in the day where I can just take a breather and be like, okay, let me talk about this. Let me exercise this. Let me get this off my mind, off my chest, off my brain. So I can speak to somebody and feel like, okay, I'm not the only person that knows this. Okay, let me put this out there. So if you watch the video, put some comments below. You know what I'm saying? Don't just no disrespect. I appreciate an emoji, like a thumbs up. Oh yeah, that's what's up. Peace, God, and all that. But leave a little comment. Let me know that you actually watched the video, not just, oh, peace, God. Like if I sent you something and it's an hour something long video, and then five minutes later you sending me a thumbs up. Man, you didn't watch the video. It's a whole hour long some video. You couldn't possibly have watched it in 5 minutes. So why are you sending me a thumbs up? Watch the video and then send me a comment and be like, yeah, God, I peeped that. Yo, you was building on some deep science, and this is what I get from it. So now if I can get feedback from the people, then I can see like, okay, well, that's what you're saying. And then y'all can also read the information for yourself, add on, and then give me information from your perspective. Part of stuff, the God chiming in. I gotta send him the new link. So listen, y'all, I'm gonna say peace, y'all. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna be back on the next section, on the next segment. And you know what I mean? Like I say, it's how it goes down, and this is how we elevating up in the new and universal temple of the sun, planet, moon, and stars. Peace to the gods and the earth, peace to the positive people in the universe. Peace. Babies are the greatest. Name of the Lord, the Father. Peace.